My parents took out an $800,000 mortgage in my name, claiming it was my duty to help my brother's girlfriend. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. But what I did next left them begging. Imagine looking into the eyes of your own family, the people who raised you, and seeing them smile as they confess to utterly destroying your future. That's how I found out my name, my credit, my entire life, had been given away, sold, for my brother's dream house. That morning started so ordinary. My window overlooked a quiet slice of Denver sky, just beginning to shift from pale gray to soft blue. The kettle hummed its familiar tune behind me. My chipped ceramic mug, a gag gift that read, "I'm not a morning person, I'm barely a person," felt warm in my hands. It was the kind of morning I loved, reliable, undramatic. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I usually ignore those, but something nudged me. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was just plain stupidity. "Hello, is this Odella Hartwell?" I froze. The voice was too official to be a scam, too calm to be casual. "Yes, this is she. This is Brian White with Liberty National Bank. We're contacting you regarding the outstanding balance on your mortgage loan account ending in 2048. I blinked. "I don't have a mortgage." He didn't flinch. "The loan was issued 3 years ago, in the amount of $800,000, under your name and social security number. We've sent several notices." My voice cracked. I hated that it did. $800,000? I don't own property. You've got the wrong person. No, ma'am. We've verified the birth date and SSN. Your name is on every page. My breath caught. $800,000. I barely had $800 in my checking account. He offered to send a digital copy of the loan file. I couldn't speak. I ended the call without saying goodbye, sitting there with the phone still in my hand, my heart in free fall. I wasn't even scared yet. Just numb. Later that morning, I started digging. First, a thin flyer tossed with junk mail, Liberty National's logo emblazoned on it, addressed to me. Then, the plastic bin under my bed, overflowing with old tax forms, medical bills, scraps of paperwork. I found the folder marked family. And there it was, my signature, again and again. On FAFSA forms for Jason. On hospital authorizations for Mom. I had always helped. Always filled things out. Always been the one who knew how to read the fine print. That's when it clicked. 3 years ago. Jason and his girlfriend, Vera, had been house hunting. I remembered Thanksgiving, Jason complaining, "The market's brutal." Mom, ever the peacemaker, chiming in, "We'll figure something out. Family always does." Back then, I thought she meant they'd help with a down payment, offer some savings. That phrase, "family always does," it sounded so generous then. Now, it felt like a weapon. I didn't do anything right away. I couldn't. I sat in silence for hours, staring at my laptop, not opening it. I watched dust motes dance in the sunlight, feeling time pass, slow and sharp. That night, I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, bright as ever. "Sweetheart, did you get the pot roast I dropped off?" "I did," I said, my voice unnaturally calm. "Thanks." "Hey, quick question. Why is there a mortgage in my name with Liberty National Bank?" Silence. Just long enough to be suspicious. "Oh, that." Her voice slid back in, smooth, like she'd been waiting for this. "It's just paperwork. Jason needed a little help qualifying. You weren't using your credit for anything big, right?" I sat straight up. "You signed for a house using my name? Without telling me? It's not like you're buying anything. And he really needed it. You know how hard he's been working." She sounded so exasperated, like I was the problem. I didn't know whether to laugh or throw my phone. "That's not the point. You didn't even tell me." "You always overreact," she said, with that dismissive lilt I knew too well. "Jason deserves a future. You know how much pressure he's under. We figured you'd understand. You're the one who's always been level-headed." I could barely speak. "You think he deserves a house in my name?" "Look, honey," she sighed, impatient now. "You don't even have a family. Jason's starting one. He needs this more than you do." It was so casual. Like she'd asked to borrow a sweater and forgot to give it back. She wasn't angry. She wasn't ashamed. She was rational, at least in her mind. I ended the call without saying anything else. There was nothing to say that would have made her hear me. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, the ceiling spinning like a slow carousel. Every memory I had of helping came back with a new taste in my mouth, metallic, bitter, used. When I was 15, Jason crashed his car. Dad blamed the weather. When I dented a fender 2 years later, I was told I'd never drive again unless I paid every cent to fix it myself. Jason dropped out of community college twice. When I got a scholarship to CU Boulder, Mom said, "Don't brag, he's sensitive." I worked through school. I paid off my student loans early. Jason couldn't hold a job longer than 6 months, but he always had the new iPhone. Always had someone bailing him out. And me? I was the one who didn't need anything. The one they called independent. The one who got told, "You're so strong." But strength, I was starting to realize, was just code for, "You'll survive whatever we do to you." I closed my laptop. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. I sat there with a quiet I hadn't felt before. Not peace, not calm. Just a stillness so dense it felt like gravity. They'd used my name like it belonged to them. Maybe because, to them, it did. But that was about to change. My eyes opened before the sun had fully crested. The room felt heavy, like the kind of silence that settles after something important is cracked. I pushed off the blanket and walked barefoot across the hardwood to the file cabinet tucked beside my desk. It was an old metal thing I'd bought secondhand, back when I thought organizing my life in folders would give me control over it. I started pulling files. School forms. Tax returns. Medical consents. All the documents that had ever needed my signature over the past 10 years. Some still smelled faintly of printer toner. Next, I opened the email from Liberty National. The PDF loaded slow, the little spinning icon taunting me. When it finally appeared, I zoomed in on the signature line. It looked like mine, at first glance. The curve of the O, the tail on the A. But then I noticed the R in Hartwell. It didn't dip. Mine always dips. And the Y had a curl that wasn't mine. Whoever did this, they had practiced. Studied. I almost had to admire the effort. Until I saw the notary stamp. That's what made my stomach drop. The notary wasn't a stranger. It was someone I went to high school with, Chelsea Bertram. We weren't close, but we'd shared a locker wall and a few awkward laughs in gym class. I remembered she'd stayed in Denver, had a kid young, got certified in something administrative. I never asked. I opened my phone, searched her name on Facebook. Found her profile in seconds. She still used that same photo from her baby's first birthday, hair in a bun, a balloon in her hand. I sent her a message. "Hi Chelsea, this is Odella Hartwell. Quick question, did you notarize a mortgage document for Liberty National Bank in my name a few years ago?" I didn't expect a fast reply, but an hour later, my phone buzzed. "Hi Odella." "I did. Your mom said you were sick and couldn't come in. Said it was urgent." I didn't think twice. She seemed really upset. If I did something wrong, I'm sorry. I read it twice. Then 3 more times. My fingers tingled like they'd been dipped in ice. She didn't say it maliciously. She didn't know. Chelsea had believed my mother. Believed the woman who once grounded me for not washing my dishes fast enough when she said I was too sick to sign my own mortgage. Like I didn't exist as a legal adult. Like I was just convenient paperwork. The air in my apartment felt thinner. I walked to the window, cracked it open, and leaned out. A few cars passed. Someone walked their dog. The world kept moving like nothing had happened. But it had. Something had snapped. Around 2 p.m., I was still at the kitchen table when there was a knock at the door. I didn't move right away. I wasn't expecting anyone. The knock came again, firmer. When I opened it, a man in a reflective vest stood on the porch, clipboard in hand. Behind him, a tow truck idled at the curb. "Afternoon, ma'am. We are here to recover the 2020 Honda Civic. Payments are 90 days delinquent. Name's Odella Hartwell, correct?" I blinked. "That's my name, yes, but I didn't buy that car." He tilted the clipboard toward me. "My birth date. My full name. My credit line." "That's definitely me," I said, softer now. "But I never signed anything for a Civic. That car was a gift from my father." He shrugged. "Still under your name. We're authorized to repossess." I stepped outside as he moved toward the car. The breeze stung more than it should have. I watched him loop the tow cable beneath the front axle and crank it tight. A few neighbors peeked from their blinds. One even stepped onto their porch, just far enough to look concerned, but not say a word. I didn't argue. What would I have said? I sat down on the front step, letting the cold concrete press into the backs of my legs. As the Civic rolled away, I realized it wasn't just about the car or the mortgage or even Chelsea's message. It was everything. It was Jason's graduation party where I paid for the catering because he'd had a rough year. It was the time Mom used my tax return when Jason couldn't cover rent and never gave it back. It was the birthday card that said, "To our reliable one. You make things work." Reliable translation, you're the one we'll bleed dry, and you'll smile while it happens. I went back inside. My fingers were numb, but my mind was sharper than it had been in days. I pulled a yellow legal pad from my drawer. At the top, in all caps, I wrote, "Instances of unauthorized use of my identity." Then I underlined it once. Then twice. Because now I had a list to build. And I was done being quiet. The legal pad sat on my lap, holding its breath for me. 5 entries. 5 moments where my name was used like a spare key they never returned. I flipped the page, then flipped it back again. I wasn't done. Not yet. I stared at the last word I'd written, hospital. And underlined it, not neatly, with pressure. That word pulled something I hadn't looked at in months. Not because I forgot, but because it scared me. 6 months ago, I landed in the emergency room. A reaction to shellfish. Somebody's mistake at a catered work event. My throat had closed up so fast. I remembered the ambulance ride only in flashes. I'd been unconscious for over 12 hours. The only visitor listed during my stay was my mother, and I had brushed it off as comforting. Of course Mom would be there. But now, I couldn't stop wondering what she'd been doing in those hours when I couldn't move, couldn't sign, couldn't speak. I opened my laptop, logged into my old email, and scrolled to the dates around the incident. It didn't take long to find it. Congratulations! Your Liberty National Mortgage application has been approved. Timestamp, 3:11 p.m. I clicked it open. Read it again and again. I was unconscious during that entire afternoon. I knew that much. I didn't want to assume. I wanted proof. The next day, I called the hospital, pretending I was just organizing my health records. After being bounced around departments, I ended up speaking to a woman named Trina in records. Can you confirm who signed my intake paperwork during my ER visit back in October? There was a pause, then some keyboard clicking. Looks like it was a relative. A woman listed as Patrice Hartwell. My mother. I understand. Do you happen to have footage of my room or timestamps for when I was admitted? Trina was quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, "You were brought in at 2:12. Nurse records show you were unconscious by 2:29. There's a hallway camera we can pull to confirm." She called me back 2 hours later. Her voice had a different tone. "The footage shows your mother entering your room at 2:47 p.m. You're clearly unconscious. I'm sorry if this is upsetting, but you don't move the entire clip." And the mortgage signature was timestamped 3:11, I said. She didn't respond. She didn't have to. I hung up. Sat down slowly and let my hands fall into my lap. For the first time, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just watched the weight settle around me. A signature forged while I couldn't speak. Because that was the safest version of me for them to exploit, silent. That weekend, I drove out to the edge of Denver, to a storage unit I had nearly forgotten I even rented. I hadn't been back since I moved apartments 2 years ago. The air inside was dry and stale, everything coated in a thin layer of dust. The place was full of things I hadn't had the heart to throw away. Family albums. Cards from birthdays where I didn't feel celebrated. Even the boxes my dad insisted we save from Thanksgiving decorations. I opened one labeled Thanksgiving 2022. Inside, tucked between a ceramic pumpkin and a candle that had long lost its scent, was a photo frame. I remembered it. It had sat on the buffet table that year, near the cornbread stuffing and the sad cranberry sauce no one ate. My parents had proudly displayed it as the Hartwell family. The photo inside showed my parents, my brother Jason, and his girlfriend, standing in front of our house. I wasn't in it. I blinked. I had been there that day. I'd driven 3 hours for that dinner. I'd even brought dessert, pecan pie and lemon bars, because Mom said not everyone likes chocolate. I dug deeper and found an envelope of original photo prints, still in the glossy sleeve from the drugstore. I pulled it out. There we were. All of us. Me included, standing right between my parents, one arm over Jason's shoulder. I was wearing that burnt orange sweater I always liked in the fall. They had cropped me out. Not metaphorically. Literally. They took the image and cut me from it. I sat down hard on the concrete floor, the envelope still open in my lap. The fluorescent bulb above flickered once, then again. They hadn't just signed in my name. They had started erasing me. From documents. From decisions. From memories. I wasn't just the backup plan. I was the invisible one. I held both photos, one with me, one without, side by side. My hands didn't shake. Not anymore. You took me out of the picture, I whispered. Now I'll write one you can't erase. I didn't text her right away. I stared at the cropped photo for hours that night, holding it like it was radioactive. The next morning, I laid both versions side by side on my desk, me in, me out, and took a picture. Then I opened a text thread I hadn't touched in weeks. I'll come to Sunday dinner. That's all I wrote. I slid the original photo into the side pocket of my purse, zipped it shut, and didn't touch it again until the weekend came. Sunday was cold, that sort of late winter chill that made everything feel sterile. I pulled up to my parents' house in Centennial a few minutes after 5. The same gray sedan in the driveway. The same wind chime clinking against the porch light. Inside, it smelled like lemon-scented floor cleaner and roast beef. Everything was too bright. Too shiny. Maris, my mother, opened the door like I hadn't gone silent for a week and a half. Look who decided to join us, she chirped, as if I was a guest, not her daughter. Not the woman whose life they were dismantling piece by piece. Harlan, my father, offered a grunt that barely qualified as acknowledgement. My brother, Ronan, was already in the kitchen, pouring wine like he ran the place. Vera, his fiancée, floated in behind him in a white floral sundress, lips glossed, eyes gleaming. Oh, Del, she said, drawing the nickname out. I'm so glad you made it. We were just talking about the wedding menu. Wait till you see the Pinterest board. No one asked me how I'd been. No one mentioned the mortgage. No one said a damn word about my car being repossessed or my credit being destroyed. We sat down to dinner at the long oak table. The roast was dry. The potatoes were too buttery. Everything was perfect in that fake way where the food is hot but the conversation is cold. Maris made a joke about seating charts. Ronan laughed too hard. Vera passed around her phone, filled with photos of table centerpieces and cake designs. I chewed slowly, watching their mouths move, but not hearing any of it. After a few minutes, I cleared my throat. Have the invitations gone out? Vera blinked. Of course. Didn't you get yours? I reached into my purse, pulled out the envelope, and placed it beside my plate. They all stared. On the front, Ronan and guest. Inside, a crisp white card with gold lettering, please reply, instructions, venue details. Nowhere did it say my name. Ronan's girlfriend got a personalized invitation. His sister got treated like a +1. Maris let out a tight laugh, too loud for the silence. Oh, honey, that must have been a mix-up. You know you're invited. Vera flushed but didn't speak. I said nothing. Just picked up the envelope, slid it back into my bag, and folded the flap shut. Silence hung in the room like cigarette smoke, stale and choking. Harlan finally leaned forward, his fork still in his hand. We're all just trying to move forward, Odella. You hang on to too much. It's not healthy. I looked up slowly. Met his eyes. Do you even know what's been put in my name? He shifted in his seat. Maris glanced down. Vera froze. I didn't think so. For a moment, I thought someone might finally crack. Might say something human. Might admit something real. But no. Ronan poured more wine. Maris asked if I wanted dessert. So I stood up. Pushed my chair back with the soft scrape of wood on tile. Thanks for dinner, I said. My voice was calm. Measured. Next time you decide to write me out, at least have the decency not to send it through the mail. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't raise my voice. But I did feel something shift inside me. And this time, I wasn't going to ignore it. I didn't look back when I left the dinner table. I didn't need to. The silence behind me said enough. When I got home, I kicked off my shoes, sat on the edge of my bed, and opened my phone. A Pinterest link caught my eye, sent from Vera weeks ago, back when she still pretended to like me. I clicked it. It loaded slowly. Langford Maddox wedding. Soft pinks, gold accents. Hashtags like hashtag forever Langford. And finally, hashtag Maddox. I scrolled, table arrangements, bridesmaid dresses, gift registry. And then a section titled, Family Moments. I wasn't in a single photo. Not one. My hand tightened around the phone until I thought I'd cracked the screen. 2 days later, a text from Vera popped up. Casual, like nothing had happened. Hey, want to grab coffee? Just us. No drama, promise. I stared at the screen for a while. Then typed back, sure. We met at a small cafe 2 blocks from my apartment. I got there early, picked a table near the back. Vera arrived 10 minutes late, flawless as ever, with perfect curls and soft perfume that screamed curated effort. She smiled like this was brunch. Thank you for coming. I really wanted to clear the air. I nodded but said nothing. She sat across from me and stirred her tea, even though she hadn't added anything. I know you're going through a lot, she began, her tone sugar-coated, but I heard the salt beneath it. I can't imagine how stressful all this has been. But Odella, this is Ronan's time. You know, it's really important to him that everything goes smoothly. She looked up at me with those big, fake concerned eyes. I just hope you won't cause a scene at the wedding. That would really hurt your parents. Especially your mom. I stared at her for a long second. Then blinked once. You done? She gave a breathy laugh. I didn't mean that in a harsh way. I know, I let the silence stretch until she shifted uncomfortably. She finished her tea too quickly and said she had to meet a florist. We didn't hug goodbye. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept playing back her voice, asterisk this is Ronan's time. Don't make your parents sad, asterisk I got up, turned on the lamp, and opened my old tax folder. It was something I hadn't looked through in years. There, stuck between a stack of W-2s and health insurance forms, was a tuition statement from Ronan's college, dated back during the recession, when we were all scraping by. I remembered it clearly now. I'd had some leftover financial aid, and he needed help. I'd sent a check directly to the student account. Back then, it felt right. Family helped family. A few years later, we were at a birthday dinner for my mom. Ronan gave a speech. He always loved speeches, thanking our parents for sacrificing everything so he could graduate debt-free. I wasn't mentioned. Not a word. I sat down on my floor with that memory pressing down on my chest like a physical weight. It wasn't just about money or the wedding or the mortgage. It was every time they took from me, time, credit, identity, and made me feel like I was selfish for noticing. I pulled out the yellow legal pad, flipped past the previous entries, and added 2 more bullet points, paid Ronan's tuition, unacknowledged. And, Vera warning, emotional manipulation under the guise of family harmony. Then I stared at the page for a long time. The words blurred a little, but I didn't cry. I picked up a fresh sheet. At the top, in all caps, I wrote, Wedding Day. Underneath it, I drew a heavy line. They think I won't act because I'm quiet, I whispered. But I had been listening. Watching. Remembering. And they weren't ready for what came next. I didn't sleep the night I circled wedding day. My mind was a tightrope, one thought away from breaking. Morning light bled through the blinds as I sat on the floor, surrounded by papers, files, screenshots, and that yellow legal pad. Then a ping. It was a DM from Clarice, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. We'd studied political science together at CU Boulder. Her message was short, hey, is that your name on this TikTok? Thought of you right away. I clicked the link. The video began with upbeat music and a drone shot swooping down on a freshly painted suburban home with cream siding, black trim, and a wide, grinning porch. Vera's voice came through, sugary and bright. We finally closed on our dream house. Thank you to everyone who believed in us. I paused the frame. There it was, the address. I didn't need to check. I knew it by heart. Because it was still under my name. I stood up too quickly, knocking over the pad. My knees popped. My breath went shallow. I fumbled through the folder, pulled out the deed I'd printed from Liberty National Bank's portal, and laid it beside my laptop. Mortgage holder, Odella Hartwell. They hadn't even transferred the title. I replayed the video. This time, reading the comments, couple goals. Manifesting this exact home energy. Where did y'all get the door paint? They were using me for internet clout. For likes. For applause. My name was their leverage. Their stage. And I'd been the quiet one long enough. By noon, I was pacing my apartment, the window shut, the air stagnant and warm. I texted Sloane, a friend from back when I worked temp admin jobs. She was now a legal analyst at a mid-sized Denver firm. Can I come by today? Her reply, of course. You okay? I wasn't. But I said yes. An hour later, I was sitting across from her in a gray conference room that smelled like toner and ambition. Sloane pulled up my file on her screen, her brow furrowed. Odella, you've got 5 active financial obligations with your name on them. 3 of which are tied to properties or accounts where the primary users aren't you. She leaned closer. This isn't accidental. This looks patterned. Especially if it's all within your family. My stomach flipped. A pattern? I asked, barely above a whisper. It's a strategy, she said. A class action lawyer could look at this and call it a deliberate structure of identity exploitation. You're not just a victim. You're the mechanism they've been using. The word hit me like a freight train, mechanism. I wasn't a person to them. I was a credit score. I can refer you to a specialist, Sloane continued. She handles familial fraud cases, and she's ruthless. I nodded. She printed out everything, every flagged item, every suspicious overlap. I collected the pages like armor. Back at home, I spread the documents across my bed. Opened a new browser window and typed, Bank Fraud Division Liberty National Report Identity Abuse. I clicked the form, uploaded my supporting files, and hovered over the subject line. Then I typed, Urgent, Mortgage Dispute. Suspected fraudulent ownership. And hit send. The reply came just before sunrise, we've opened an investigation. Please submit notarized proof of identity. I read it 3 times. Then again. Something inside me, tight for weeks, finally loosened. For once, it wasn't me yelling into a void. Someone was listening. Someone official. I closed my laptop slowly, stared at the ceiling, and let myself feel it. Motion. Small, maybe. But real. By 9 a.m., I was standing outside the downtown office Sloane had mentioned, Browner, Kessler, and Lowry. The building was old brick with steel-framed windows, but the nameplate on the glass door gleamed. Inside, the scent of copier ink and citrus cleaner welcomed me in. I gave my name, and 10 minutes later, I was seated across from Mr. Clay Browner, a man with tired eyes and a voice like sandpaper. He skimmed the folders I brought without saying much. Every now and then, he muttered something, patterned behavior, power of attorney abuse, internal family fraud. Then he looked at me and said flatly, You're not the first Hartwell I've seen. We've had 3 cases tied to that name in the last 7 years. Quiet settlements, all of them. I blinked. Hartwell? He nodded. Family trust abuse. It's more common than people admit, especially among high-controlled parents and golden child dynamics. When documented properly, it becomes classifiable under organized fraud statutes. Wait, you're saying they've done this before? Not with mortgages, no, he replied, closing the file. But with business loans, medical debt, even car titles. Your case, it's got teeth. When I walked back to the parking lot, I felt taller. Not safe, not yet, but grounded. That's when I heard someone behind me say my name. Odella? I turned. A woman in a navy jacket, hair pulled into a clean twist, stepped forward. I didn't recognize her face, but the eyes. I'd seen them before, in photos on Ronan's phone, back when we were still speaking. It clicked. Soraya, she said, answering my silence. I'm his ex. Of course. She didn't waste time. He used my name on a car lease. Said it was just temporary. Got a loan approved too. I found out when a collector called me. The address on the paperwork? Your parents' house. Maddox Drive. I stared at the paper she handed me, a debt statement from 5 years ago. I wasn't shocked, just confirmed. I tried to tell people, but everyone thinks Ronan's so charming, she said. He spins everything like it's nothing. Gaslights you into silence. I felt a strange surge. Not anger, not yet. Something more like satisfaction. Vindication. The story I'd been living in isolation was no longer mine alone. Thank you, I said. This helps more than you know. She nodded, then touched my arm gently. You're not crazy. Later that afternoon, I called Sloan and left a voicemail. We've got a corroborating witness. Her name's Soraya. She has paperwork. Then I called home. It was almost dinner time. I knew they'd be at the table, passing rolls, avoiding each other's eyes. Maris picked up after the third ring. Hi, Mom, I said. My voice was steady. Measured. Oh, Odella. Her tone was clipped. You should tell Ronan to hire a lawyer. Silence. Then, are you threatening your own family? No, I said calmly. I'm forecasting. Click. That night, after finishing a frozen lasagna I barely tasted, I went downstairs to get something from my car. I noticed the glass a second too late. The glittering shards that littered the pavement like sharp confetti. My driver's side window had been smashed in. I didn't move. I just stared. Because it wasn't even surprising anymore. Just next. A sticky note flapped lightly against the gearshift. The writing was uneven, almost childlike. Back off. I didn't pick it up. I walked upstairs, locked my door, sat at my desk, opened a new document, and started writing everything down. I didn't flinch when I saw the glass. I didn't need to. I'd already accepted that they were capable of worse. Instead, I snapped a picture of the shattered window, then the threatening note left on my passenger seat. I sent both to Sloan. My message was short, they escalated. Let's proceed. The air was crisp that morning, the kind of cold that wakes you up without permission. I wore my thick coat and drove to the HOA legal mediation downtown with my window temporarily patched by clear plastic and duct tape. The sound it made, flapping and shrill, wasn't unlike the voice in my head, relentless. Inside the hearing room, it was too bright, too clean. A white-walled conference space with polished floors and coffee cups lined in tidy rows, like none of us were there to ruin someone else's life. But that was the thing. They'd already ruined mine. Ronan and Vera sat across the table, dressed like the pressure hadn't reached their pores yet. Vera gave me a tight smile. Ronan didn't look at me at all. Liberty National's rep cleared his throat. We're here to review the mortgage dispute tied to property 731, Juniper Hill Lane. I calmly laid out the notarized affidavit, hospital timestamps, and overlays of my signature on prior legal forms. Every slide I clicked through hit like a silent gavel. Vera's voice cracked. We thought she'd agreed. We thought she knew. The HOA board didn't blink. Until the investigation concludes, your renovation permits are suspended. And due to legal liability, you are required to vacate the property within 30 days. Ronan's chair scraped backward. This is ridiculous. We're the ones who turned that place around. You turned it with money that wasn't yours, I said, looking him dead in the eye. By evening, I was back in my apartment when I heard the knock. I knew it before I opened the door. It was Maris. Her eyes looked heavier than I remembered, her hands trembling as she clutched the hem of her cardigan. She didn't ask to come in. She just stood there on my welcome mat, like a ghost who didn't know she died. We just wanted Ronan to have a future, she whispered. You were always fine, Odella. No, I said evenly. I was always invisible. There's a difference. I handed her a sealed envelope, copies of the debt reports, the forensic signature analysis, and a timeline of every theft under my name. You'll need this, I said. The law is coming next. She nodded once but didn't argue. She looked older, like all the denial had finally sunk through her skin. When she left, she didn't say goodbye. Later that night, I opened a cedar box from my childhood closet, the one I used to hide birthday cards and drawings inside. Beneath folded construction paper was a yellowed envelope I'd never opened before. The handwriting was unmistakable, Grandma. My breath caught. Inside, the letter was simple, but the words hit with the weight of every quiet moment I'd ever swallowed. They did this to me too, once. Your mother and her sister. Don't let them define you, darling. Take your name back. I read it 3 times before I set it down. I stood at the window, the Denver skyline glowing faintly against the night. I felt still. Centered. Not triumphant. Not bitter. Just ready. You used my name like it belonged to you, I whispered. But I reclaimed it. My phone buzzed beside me. Court clerk. Subject line, filing accepted. You will be notified of your hearing date. I smiled. Not because I won, but because I finally showed up for myself. The courtroom was quiet. Quiet in the way only places heavy with judgment can be. I sat alone at the plaintiff's table, hands folded, breath steady. Across the aisle sat a man in a gray suit, representing Ronan and Vera. No eye contact. No acknowledgement. Just paperwork and silence. Mr. Browner, my attorney, leaned in and slid a single page toward me. You don't have to speak, Odella. But if you do, make it count. I nodded. But I already knew. I wasn't going to say a word. The judge, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a voice like slate, read the decision clearly, without drama. The mortgage was voided. My name cleared. Credit restitution ordered in full. And then she added something unexpected. This court recognizes a pattern of coercive financial abuse within the family structure. Maris Maddox and Harlan Maddox are hereby issued a formal warning. Any further involvement in their children's financial activity will result in civil penalties. I heard someone shift behind me. I didn't look. Outside, as I walked toward the courthouse steps, I spotted Maris sitting alone on a bench. Her back was straight, hands clenched tightly on her lap. She didn't look up when I passed. I didn't stop. Back home, I packed quietly. It didn't take long. Just a few boxes of what I actually needed, what actually mattered. I wasn't running. I was stepping away. Cleanly. Deliberately. Before leaving, I took the original family photo, the one they'd cropped me out of, and slid it into an envelope. I taped it to my front door. No note. No signature. Just that image, whole and untouched. Let them decide what it meant. 2 weeks later, I stood behind a small wooden booth at a weekend artisan market in Boulder. My hands smelled like clay and lavender oil. I'd started throwing pottery again. The mugs were a little lopsided, the glaze a bit too thick, but people smiled when they picked them up. A woman with gray-streaked hair held one in her hand. The side read, Reclamation. She asked why that word. I smiled. Because it wasn't supposed to exist. But it does. She bought two. That night, back at my apartment, I made tea and stepped out onto the small balcony that overlooked the quiet alley. It wasn't much. But it was mine. No one else's name was on the lease. No one else's fingerprints on my choices. I watched the steam rise from the cup. No phone calls. No guilt. No one telling me to be the bigger person. Just silence. But not the kind that eats at you. The kind that heals. They had used my name like it belonged to them. They signed. Borrowed. Erased. Believing I'd never make a sound. But I didn't need noise to be heard. I walked away. No screaming. No threat. Just silence. Silence they couldn't ignore.